All right, welcome everyone. Welcome back to our fall webinar series. This is the third of 3 webinars in this fall series, and this one's focusing on spatially enabling campus public safety data. I'm Justin Anderson. I'm a Smart Campus Operations lead here on our education team at Esri. We have a full panel of presenters with us today. So as many of you know, we have Brian Baldwin, Senior Solution Engineer on the education team here at Esri. We also have Elizabeth Perez from UC Riverside. I don't know if she's on camera right now, but we have Diana Henderson from UC San Diego. And we also have Nevin Baez from Esri. All right, so a quick look at today's agenda. I'm going to quickly get us through some housekeeping items and a brief overview of the webinar today. Then I'm going to turn things over to Brian. He's going to walk us through some of our out-of-the-box ArcGIS public safety solutions. Then Elizabeth and Diana are going to talk about the use of GIS with public safety on their respective campuses. Elizabeth is focused on some public safety maps and applications, and Diana has a focus on a COVID response application that they formulated there at UC Riverside. UC San Diego. Then Nevin Baez here at Esri, he's going to walk us through a quick story map that he put together in regards to ARPA funding. Many of you may or may not be aware of this, but it could be beneficial to a lot of the folks on this call. Then I'll close things out with some of the resources like we've done on the previous webinars, and then we'll open things for Q&A. So a little housekeeping here. Per the usual, if you have any questions, please enter those questions into the chat box. We realize there's some other options, but just put all your questions in the chat box. We will have staff monitoring those questions. Some of them we'll likely get to during the webinar, and if we don't get to those, we'll have some time at the end, or we can then respond to you in an email afterwards. All microphones will be muted, and we will make the webinar and the slides available to everyone following the webinar today. We'll also have a survey at the end of the webinar that we ask all of you to complete if you have time. We do make adjustments to these webinars based on the feedback we get from all of you. So, all right, and then just a quick overview here. Again, the purpose of this webinar series was to show out-of-the-box solutions for campus utilities and public safety teams on campuses. These webinars have highlighted some key products for expanding the use of GIS, and then showing what some of our education customers are doing to date. This third webinar is going to focus on spatially enabling campus public safety data. So for many of you, if you don't know, ArcGIS for public safety can securely integrate data from the Internet of Things, business systems, specific public safety partners that you all may have, using the common language of location. And you can visualize and analyze a lot of this information to uncover hidden vulnerabilities or patterns, to help you prioritize and plan efforts to increase safety and security in your community. So to keep things moving, I'm going to turn things over to Brian, and he's gonna walk us through some ArcGIS public safety solutions. Brian?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Justin. All right, as Justin said, I'm Brian Baldwin. I'm a solution engineer on Esri's higher education team, and I help support, the campus operations, and as Justin said, utilities, public safety, really anything that happens operations-wise on a campus. And so as Justin said, we're here today to talk about a couple of the different ways or patterns of use for Esri's technology to support campus safety operations. And there are a wide range of ways the technology can be deployed and used, but we wanted to focus on these 6 use cases. And so these 6 different bullets that I have listed out here are specific ways that the technology can be deployed and configured. And we also have a number of templates in place that in literally one click, you can stand up some of these templates to start getting your data configured and getting some of these workflows configured. So just to briefly touch on these 6. So a common operating picture, so the idea of having dashboards or other tools to really see incidents and see staff and see officers and their locations. event operations. So there's a couple of solutions, as I mentioned, that with one click you can deploy and get some of those configurable templates and applications up and running. And that one specifically I'll show a little bit more detail on. Mobile reporting and tracking. This is always one of the biggest challenges. When you think of events or when you think of a campus, maybe there are 4 or 5 officers patrolling the campus. Maybe there are 20. You know, where are they? For many staff, it might be just a radio that they have to report back their status, their location. What if you could know in real time where officers are, and then combine that with other incident information to be able to see a real kind of picture of what's taking place on the campus. There's crime analysis tools to do kind of classic CompStat reporting and other types of crime analysis. Emergency management operations, as well as tools for engaging with your stakeholders. In this case, obviously, the community. And so Esri is working with not only campuses, but I just wanted to make it clear that we are working with emergency management, state police, national police, agencies across the globe. Literally, there are thousands of different agencies are using Esri's tech to support their public safety, their operations. So if there's a specific workflow I did not have listed on those 6 bullets, just reach out to us and we'd love to chat with you about it and see what ideas you might have. From doing evacuation plans, evacuation reports, real time, the list goes on and on. And so we can't get through all of those things today. But again, just to let you know, we have thousands of users out there on the, in the public safety realm using this technology to support their operations. And then we also have a lot of users on campuses and in higher ed that are using the tools and technology to support a number of different things. I mentioned those 6 workflows, and here are a couple of specific solutions that I wanted to highlight just to show what some of these could look like and what that GIS use case can be. The one listed up in the top right I want to focus on is the one for event management. I feel like every time I jump on a call and it's related to events or concerts or any kind of thing that's taking place on a campus, and usually these could be even daily events or those kinds of plans, a lot of this stuff is still just getting done on paper. And so there's a template and there's a solution we have where you can start to build out digital tracking reporting to do event management. And then you can have a pattern in place that you can then repeat and use for events that might be in a similar location, similar size. You can think of marking your staging areas, where certain types of equipment or assets or people are located. And then all this information can then be viewed, visible on a mobile device as well. So it starts to move away from that paper approach of managing an event. And so the event operations is that workflow I mentioned a couple of times. So the solution and the click to deploy this thing has these kind of 3 main buckets. There's an application to help you plan the event so you can move past that paper workflow. And again, when you're trying to coordinate with local sheriff, local police, local emergency management, there's probably 10 or so state, local agencies along with your own community that you're trying to share information for if it's related to big football games or concerts or events or graduation day. All this stuff can now be recorded digitally and then shared with all those stakeholders. So there's that first piece to be able to just plan the event. Number 2 is while the event is taking place, there's dashboards, there's mobile tools to be able to manage and monitor that event in real time and watch as changes happen or as incident reports get logged. And number 3 is the after the event. So after the event, how did things go? What went right? What went wrong? You have all those incident reports. You have everything logged digitally. You can have the tracks and locations of all the staff and personnel. And you can go through and review how things were. And then you can modify your digital plan for the next event that's coming up. So now you have a track record of all these events. Everything that transpired can help you improve operations moving forward. So I'm going to do a 2-second demonstration and just show you how you can get started with some of this stuff. Again, we could spend a whole day kind of walking through the demonstrations here in the tech, and I just wanted to show how you can get started with some of this stuff. So I'm logged into my organization, my ArcGIS online site, and I'm going to go up here to just these little buttons, this kind of keypad style selection tool. And down here, I have an option for solutions. If I click solutions, this will now launch a separate application, launch a page, and this gives me access to all of the ArcGIS solutions, which are templates of maps, applications that are pre-configured with schemas, with applications. You know, gives you basically everything to get started besides the data and having it customized for your school. We don't have a click, or there's not an option here to click for campuses or universities. But all you need to do, especially for public safety, click here for public safety, and a couple of great examples pop right up. So here's an application to help manage road closures. And here's the one right down here that I mentioned around special event operations. So if I click this, I get details on what this solution is. I can walk through some slides that showcase what this will provide me. And if I hit deploy now, the entire solution, the applications, everything just gets pushed right into the organization, and then you can walk through and get it configured. So I mean, I'm not trying to make it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world, but it is literally just one click to deploy all of those configurations and the templates inside of an organization. And so yes, you have to go add data into it, build it out for your campus, but after that, you're good to go. So there was my 2-second demonstration for everybody. And so to wrap it up, at the heart, you can use the GIS, you can use ArcGIS Online, you can use ArcGIS Enterprise to be part of that glue for your operations related to public safety. And as we mentioned at the start of this, there are a wide array of workflows that can be supported. And this slide, again, lists just a couple of these. If it's crime centers, event management, bulletins and briefings, doing dashboards for executives, or daily operations. If you just want to have some tools in the hands of your officers or staff so they can see incidents and see other things happening in real time, that's a possibility, and that's something that would be a low bar of effort to get something like that stood up. So there's a lot of things that you can do very simply, get them stood up and then iterate over time and work towards something more advanced. And a lot of our community partners, if it's state and local government or local agencies, have a lot of this software in place already as well. And so it's a great possibility for doing some of that collaboration with your local community. A lot of communities are already logging their incidents or crime or traffic, and those layers or data can just be pulled right into the maps that you're sharing and using for internal operations or sharing with the public as well. And so as I always say, rather than hearing me kind of talk through this and at a high level tell you what you could be doing, I'm always really fortunate to see what users are excited to kind of share their stories and talk through what they've been doing with the tech. And really excited to have Elizabeth Perez on, and she's going to be talking through what she's been doing and the work that UC Riverside has been doing to help get their kind of public safety and a lot of other stuff with GIS up and running. So let me pass it over to you, Elizabeth.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much to Brian and Justin and Rosemary for having me here today and for putting together these webinars. Today, well, my name is Elizabeth Perez. I'm the GIS and Space Coordinator here. I've been at UCR for about 2.5 years, and today I will talk to you about what we have going on here at UCR, that different maps and applications that we use to promote public safety, and also some potential future projects. So the first map that I wanted to show you is this lighting on campus map that is actually on our campus map website under the interactive maps tab. And you could see all the lighting that we have on campus, as well as the emergency call boxes. And we just feel that it's very important. These kind of maps are very important for students and anyone who's on campus late at night that wants to see which paths have more light and where they would feel more safe being on campus at night. I did want to show this map that we got the idea from the University of Oregon. They have a very similar map that's super helpful. It's the lighted walkways throughout their campus and the emergency call boxes as well. So this map is on the campus map website. The next map I have is the emergency assembly area map. This map we update with the help of the emergency management team here on campus. And it is also under the Interactive Maps tab on the Campus Map website. And for this one, I made it to where you could search. So if you are on the Bournes Hall building, you could click on that and it'll take you directly where you would need to be assembling if in case of any emergency. And you could see here that you could see all the buildings that would be going to this emergency assembly area. So then also wanted to show you the emergency access lane map that we have. This map shows all the access lanes for the fire departments. All this data is shared with the Riverside Fire Department for their use on their own database. For all the buildings that we have on campus, we don't have unique city addresses. We have unique city IDs. And so the fire department uses the last 3 digits of that unique building ID. So this map is showing the building name with the last 3 digits, which is what's helpful to them. And this map, you could search by the number. So if that's what their main focus is, they could search for the number that they know of a building where they need to be, and it'll take you directly to that building. So this is this map, which anytime there's any updates, these are all sent to the Riverside Fire Department for this. And then this is a campus safety walk, a story map. This story map was done for a GIS Day presentation that we did back in the fall of 2019. So this campus safety walk is actually it was held during the spring and fall of 2019. And what we did was collect data. It was different volunteers that gathered and collected the data throughout the campus. So this story map is showing the history of the campus safety walk. Prior to spring 2019, I believe the data was collected manually and not with any application that would go on any kind of map. So we're just kind of showing the history of it and how we did a spring and a fall one during this year. We also had instructions for the volunteers for them to know how to use the collector app and be able to collect all of the data. We talked about all the benefits of using the collector app, where we're able to see in real time what the issues are, what the hazards were. We divided, the first one we did was in the core campus area, which we divided by 3 different groups. So the volunteers were divided up and walked all the core campus. And then for the fall, we focused on the housing community areas, but also divided into 3 different groups for the data collection. And so these are the issues that came up during both of these different walks. And these are the different categories that we had for safety issues. So for the most part, we did have a lot of lighting because we started doing these after sunset. So you're able to see if there's any lights that are broken, if there's areas that are too dark. So all of these were different categories that the volunteers could choose from. And also each one of these points has a picture attached to them. So after when maintenance is ready to go and take care of these issues, they could see exactly where the issue is and be able to take care of it. And then, yeah, this is just the overall map of the first safety walk and the second fall one. And then we just showed the results. And then I know there was the heat map that showed where the most lighting issues were, since that was one of the main issues. And yeah, so this is actually a biannual event, but of course, due to COVID, I know last year, I believe it was done, but it was at a much smaller scale. But hopefully in the future, we continue to have events like these that gather data with different applications that are very helpful to be able to see all of these real-time data on a map. And then I know for future projects, we've talked about adding fire sprinkler data into GIS to be able to monitor and track all of the fire sprinklers on the buildings on campus, and then as well as adding the emergency coordinator for the emergency assembly areas. So people can go and if you're in a certain building, you can go into the map and see who is a coordinator, and you could know who would know exactly where you need to be in case of any emergency. So that's what we have going on here at UCR. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Awesome, thanks so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, I love, and just to mention very briefly, you know, that idea of kind of crowdsourcing facility issues or those safety issues, you know, not to take away from the work that UCR has done, but, you know, to what I said earlier of kind of a one click, you know, people could stand up something like that really, really quickly, and obviously iterate it and modify it over time. And there's some training that might be needed for those volunteers, et cetera. But the solution itself is there and ready to be stood up. And I love the way that you guys did it in kind of that crowdsourced way. I think it's really, really powerful. So again, thanks so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate it. So up next, we've got Diana Henderson from UC San Diego. And Diana, slight pivot, is going to be walking through more of a health safety workflow and kind of talking through some of the solutions and the ways that UCSD was dealing with COVID and some of the effluent testing that was, you know, a huge priority back about a year and a half ago, and the ways that that project has continued to roll forward. So let me pass it over to you, Diana.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Justin. And thank you, Elizabeth. I might be reaching out to you later about some of the things I just saw, so appreciate that. Justin had mentioned we did a walkthrough earlier this week, and he had actually mentioned that I want to bring this to the forefront that you know, UC San Diego has traditionally not had a GIS program. And about 2.5 years ago, I was asked right after hire to transition from becoming a space analyst to a GIS program manager. And so, as anyone can imagine on this call, that can be fraught with all kinds of pitfalls. I had actually had a 15-year hiatus from GIS, and the reason wasn't because I didn't think GIS was a viable or valuable product, more because I had to justify my position while working my position. And so that's been a little bit of a struggle of mine. And then, of course, to be called back into the fold and then to justify GIS for the last 2.5 years has been something that it's been challenging, which I like. And it has also now borne some fruit. We were able to actually gain the support of the chancellor and the resource management and planning vice chancellor has provided money for us and funding for us this past fiscal year. So what we're trying to do is transition me into a new role. So space analyst won't be my moniker for too much longer, and then hire a couple more people. And so if anybody has any questions about that evolution, please do let me know. But for this specific case, what we are looking at is we stood up a program to trace COVID-19 through effluent testing for our Return to Learn program, and that we got involved early on in terms of the GIS. So this project actually started in May of 2020. I got an email about end of May, early June saying, hey, we're looking at a sewer information, and is there anything that you can help us leverage so that we can continue forward in a scalable manner? Reason being is because right at this point, I think we're up to, I don't think we're quite up to 150, but initially they intended to add 150 to 200 auto testers onto manholes, or actually clean outs, as the case may be, and collect information daily so that they could ship information to the lab and get daily results in terms of viral detection. So there were a few pillars that were included in this Return to Learn program, and the two that GIS specifically addresses are the viral detection and intervention, which in this case is targeted notification. And so we have this connectivity of geospatial layers, like the wastewater elements, that are then connected to any of the buildings upstream so that we can trace in a timely and accurate manner. And by doing this, performing this program, we were able to increase individual testing by 13-fold. Any of the notifications that were sent out were in your building, whether you reside there or you work there, there has been a positive result. Go get tested. This enabled this wastewater testing project enabled early detection of 85% of the positive results that occurred. As you can imagine, this was a large cross-functional team to get this program up and running and to provide different expertise from all areas of the university. And one of the unique things, of course, about a university is that we've certainly got operations, which I reside within, is that administrative side. And then we also have an academic side. So it took people from, we've got project managers in the operational strategic initiatives group. We've got EH&S who helped us plan which sewers were ours and which manholes we should be placing our auto testers. Campus planning, which I was a part of and now I'm transitioning, which was with GIS. Logistics, for instance, who would be hiring any of the field workers and staging any of the auto testers and providing any help in terms of person power. ITS was a big help. Facilities management, again, they helped with actually adding the auto testers onto the manholes. HGH provided information about residents because, of course, UCSD was able to retain students on campus, and part of that is by focusing on the residential buildings in terms of testing, especially initially, SIO. And then on the academic side, the night lab was the lead lab in terms of how we tested any of the samples. We had assistance from epidemiology, medicine, chemistry, and then on the GIS side, I have a great partner on the academic side, and Amy Work, who is the GIS librarian. She was a great boon to us, especially in licensing, where we were able to provide licensing to some of the researchers and students on the academic side, because if you know anything about licensure with universities, on the operational side, you have to be very careful about who you're providing licenses to. I'm pretty darn close to tapping out of the 200 licenses I actually have available to me. So, which is great actually, because it shows that it demonstrates that people they want this technology. This is not just a one-off technology. And of course, researchers and students, and there were a couple of researchers and students that at the end of this presentation, I'll let you know, they did, I was from May, June 2020 to December, I was heavily involved. And then the student and researcher took over and performed much of the rest of the work that continued. So I did just want to start with, this is actually where I started with this, it was with this diagram. We were talking about the workflow and trying to understand not just kind of the physical aspect of going out and pulling samples and getting effluent out of the manhole or out of the sewer system and then to the lab, but as well, like how do we take information and put it into a cloud environment in such a way that it's talking to each other and as well providing the best information out to analysts. So essentially it kind of starts in the left-hand corner, but really it's kind of this, as we know in GIS, it's this conversation to the cloud. So field workers have their devices, their mobile devices, where they have a survey that has the sewer network on that device, and they go out, they scan the container that has a barcode on it, they scan the auto tester that has, you can kind of see that's a little, we'll see a bigger picture later, that has a barcode on it so that you're correlating that sample to the correct manhole. And then that, of course, information goes up into the cloud, it feeds the attribute table that receptacle then goes on to the lab to be tested. They build out a lab plate of the test, right? If you've ever seen like the pipetting of like each different sample, it kind of, they build it out in a square and then they test each sample. Those lab results then go into the cloud. Again, it's all correlated based on the unique IDs of that container. And then that information is pushed into or remains in ArcGIS Inline, where you can then do geospatial analysis, and tracing in this case was the big win in terms of that. And then you've got a variety of assistants and student assistants and researchers doing that, providing the information. And then some of that information goes to our university community. And then as well, we actually provide a public notification system to the broader audience, because we're not always sure, you know, our buildings, as you know, in a university environment are in most cases public. And so we don't know who may be on our campus in a day-to-day. So that workflow didn't change very much from the beginning. What I will say is that led us into, well, let's look at the data now. And unfortunately, with the data that we had, I did not maintain it. We had a consultant that was maintaining it. They have maintained actually all of our utility information, and it was an engineering firm that I don't think, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but there's certainly a lot of education I've had to perform on GIS on this campus. And if you see in this left picture, and it's not very big, but there's a manhole with the C6M089, and then the sewer pipes that are connecting into that. Now, as you said, connecting, and you'll see there's a gap in between the end of the pipe and the manhole, which I hope would never occur in the real world. You don't want effluent just streaming out of a pipe into the ground. And so this situation happened quite a bit all over the map. So there was a lack of snapping to function. And so my recommendation was, let's fix the data. I mean, that's ultimately absolutely the what we have to do if we want to make this scalable. Unfortunately, when I recommended this, again, there wasn't a lot of understanding of GIS on campus. And so rather than fix the data initially, the people in my group decided that they were going to build an Excel table and take a PDF of the sewer system and try and build manually a correlation table of the manholes connected to the buildings. So, and I do want to point out that that middle picture is showing, again, I'm hoping some of you have, like, to me, this is kind of a 101, that the sewer system is a gravity fed system. So the direction of the line does matter. And so when you have to draw it in a line of gravity, which direction that's flowing. Well, instead of repositioning the line or flipping the line, the engineering firm decided to build points that they added to each line and flipped the orientation of the arrow based on the direction of the line. So again, that's divorced of, like, you can't use that in analysis in a modeling system. It absolutely doesn't work. The table they gave on the right, while they did correlate that manually, it was the Excel table that they built was not in a way that I could then bring into a database, which is what I ended up doing initially to build these correlations. So the far right is my attempt to take a crosswalk table of, here's the manhole is connected to this building upstream, and this is where the sewer information will flow, or the effluent will flow. So it was fraught with error initially, and eventually once the realization came about that this disconnection of the data set, this process was causing one of our researchers, who her time is very invaluable, and unfortunately she had to perform tracing of a network 2 to 3 hours a day manually, just to get information out of what, if there was a positive sample, tracing back each building that it could possibly come from. So again, this workaround caused over 400 hours of essentially useless time where we built something that was not sustainable. So in these intermediate lessons learned, we essentially learned, we really have to coordinate better and more effectively across our team in order to reduce these redundancies and miscommunications. And part of that, for me, was educating people on the capabilities of GIS. There was certainly, as I say, just a lack of understanding of what GIS could provide for people. And that involved modernizing our workflow, linking information, especially between field workers and analysts, and then automating manual tasks. So the lab results that we would get from this plate, we could then pull and use a script that would then pull it into something that we could consume in a relational table. So initially with the field work, and here's my better picture of the auto tester on the left. It looks like a little robot, and essentially it just has like a hose down at the bottom that pulls the effluent up, and then you're able to fill the container with that effluent that is being pulled up. The middle picture is the survey, what the field workers were using out in the field, and so that link in the middle would select a manhole on their map that they could then. And one of the things I wanted to mention is so this is our ArcGIS survey 123 with Explorer, which of course is going away at the end of the year. So field maps, everybody, field maps. Keep using that, right? And so I built an arcade, and I'm not much of a programmer, but I built a little arcade script that allowed me to isolate the specific manholes that had auto testers on them. So those were the only ones that had a survey link that you see in the middle there that would then push them into the survey so that they could scan the barcodes. And then on the right, I actually built a tool for the supervisor of the field workers so that he could build a route system that would encapsulate a certain number of manholes that they could then provide out to their field workers so that they could understand which manholes they had to go to daily. And that was built in ArcGIS Online. So this is where the students and researchers came into play, and I think they did a great job. I will quickly overview this because this was not my portion, but essentially, like I mentioned before, they took this lab plate information that ends up in a kind of a box or a matrix style, and took information and converted it into a relational table that then was a spreadsheet that then could be consumed at the ArcGIS side. And it's all automated, so it helps with the heavy lifting there. And then they built the tracing information. So they took the information from the plates, pushed it into the tracing network, so that we could then trace any of the buildings where the possible positive COVID results may have occurred, and then took the tracing information and pushed it into the dashboard that is part of the notification system that actually ITS maintains. It's in a Tableau reporting system. And so it has a bunch of actually other reports, but then there's also a map. And all this is automated to help people understand. And on the far right, you'll see that this is actually over time. So it's a temporal map as well. You can see where results or positive results may have been occurring over time. And then it's kind of a simple map that shows where what buildings are being monitored, where COVID has possibly been detected, and anywhere that maybe monitoring isn't occurring. So really, in a lot of respects, I think even for its simplicity, that I think it's even more powerful because it's not trying to do everything all at once. And this is the public notification map. So what I will say in summation with this project is we've talked to a lot of different universities about possibly using something like this and customizing this for each university as it may come about. So it has been a very fruitful for our campus, and then being able to leverage it in the case of like other universities, I think is pretty exciting. So that is what I've got for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Diana. That was awesome. Really fun to see how the progression of it went, and just a reminder of the amount of stakeholders and people that were involved on the campus. It's just overwhelming to think of, yeah, with obviously COVID was impacting everybody, but still the amount of stakeholders, that slide you had that had to play some kind of role in it. And I'm going to turn it over to Nevin Valles. He's going to walk through a story map he'd actually put together to help talk about and explain some of the ARPA funding. So a vehicle, the act that was passed almost 6 months ago, I think now or so, or maybe even longer than that. But Nevin's got the details within the story map, so I won't make up numbers and dates. So let me change the presenter and pass it over to you, Nevin.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me and putting this webinar together. So yeah, I'll be giving an overview on the American Rescue Plan Act and how Esri can help. So this story map is intended to educate higher education and K through 12 schools and provide resources for the American Rescue Plan Act. So this story contains links on the response to the pandemic, business continuity and recovery, campuses reopening safely, and COVID-19 ready-to-use dashboards. So the American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law on March 11th, 2021. This act provides approximately $1.9 trillion in funds for institutions of higher education and K through 12 to implement evidence-based practices to monitor and suppress coronavirus. Esri provides pre-configured solutions to give campuses the ability to quickly create maps and apps focused on specific needs. Observe, understand, and respond to the pandemic by utilizing Esri's geospatial technology. This section provides resources on how ArcGIS aids COVID response. Look at examples of how organizations around the world are using Esri technology in response to COVID-19. Protect, stabilize, and reestablish your business by using location intelligence to understand impacts and respond with data-driven decisions. This section provides insights about the impact the pandemic is having on the workforce and businesses. Learn about the spatial workflows taking place to recover and prosper the workforce worldwide. Monitor, assess, and communicate economic indicators for reopening safely. This section contains spatial information and approaches to reopening campuses safely. Readily available apps and dashboards populate the COVID-19 GIS hub. Maps like this one, the Esri COVID Pulse Map. You're able to quickly view new cases per capita, deaths per capita, and cumulative cases of COVID-19. Esri is here to support your campus deployment of COVID-19 solutions using ARPA funds for campus response and recovery initiatives. Please feel free to contact Esri's education team for more information at edadmin@esri.com. So I'll pass it back to Justin now to go over resources and wrap up the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Nevin.
Yes.
Slides back up and I'll take it away.
Thank you, Nevin. Much appreciated. So I guess for a lot of those, if you hadn't heard about the ARPA funding, Nevin's story map is a great first step, great first place to go. There is a link. I believe Rosemary put the link in the chat, so you can click on that and bookmark it or review it as needed. So thanks. First, thanks to Brian, Elizabeth, Diana, and Nevin for all the great information today and examples. Certainly appreciated. I know it was definitely helpful for me, and it was great to see what's being done out there, you know, with GIS in regards to public health and safety on campuses. So just a quick look at some of the resources for those who have attended other webinars. You know, we have a Smart Campus Operations Experience Builder page. We actually just launched our administrator industry page for education, which I dropped that link in the chat as well. So the links for the public safety solutions and the administrator industry page and also the ARPA funding, they are all in the chat window now. So if you want to go there and click on those links, you'll have access to them. They'll also be provided in the follow-up as well. So again, if you get a chance, you know, our industry page, our experience builder page, the public safety solutions, these are great places to start. When questions come up from there, you know, obviously we have a team here that you can reach out to, Brian and myself included. All right, and then just another quick overview. This is kind of, you know, related to the last couple webinars, but we do now have a campus utility user group created within the Esri community. We talked to folks, had a poll on our last webinar and had a lot of great feedback and a lot of folks looking forward to joining something like this. So quick overview is that it's going to be bi-monthly, and basically what we're looking for here is our higher ed users to kind of lead these sessions and talk about their successes, troubles they're having, catastrophic failures when they're trying to manage their utilities with GIS. There's a lot of great work that's been happening out there. Brian and I are certainly aware of that. And we want to share this information with the community. So this is the way we're gonna try and do it. I'd say for now, if you're on this webinar, you weren't on the last one and you're interested in a utility user group, please drop that in the chat window. Just give us your name and email, and then we'll follow up, or just let us know. And again, we can follow up afterwards and send you an invite to the group. And then if you know anyone that would be interested, obviously, you know, you could share it with them as well. So the more the better here. All right, and then just a few actions you can take, you know, when it comes to getting started with these solutions, or to better understand your licensing, or just to know what licensing you may need to do specific things. If you know your Esri account manager, obviously contact them first. All of the education account managers support specific regions around the United States, but can help you with your licensing related items. Or if you want to discuss further, you know, what you can do with utilities and public health and safety solutions that Esri provides. We also have a survey at the end of this that you can complete. Again, we make adjustments to these webinars based on the information that you provide back to us. So we always appreciate the feedback. It certainly does help us. And if you want to reach out to me directly, that's absolutely fine. My email is here on this slide, and it will also be on the next Q&A slide. So if you want to jot that down, I can also drop it in the chat window real quick. But with that, we've got about 9 minutes left. So I'm going to open this up for Q&A. It looks like we do have a few. Brian, I can open this up and go ahead and read a couple of them that haven't been answered. And I guess for Elizabeth, Diana, and Nevin, if everyone wanted to jump back on camera, if you can, that would be great. If not, understood. So here's one. Looks like, Brian, for you, it says, Brian, do the apps included in the solution support offline use? These are perhaps edge cases, but I'm thinking of having to deal with circumstances where power networking goes out, or for large events like football games when cellular service in the stadium area isn't reliable with so many people and devices present. Are the solutions dependent on having network connectivity?
Yeah, great question. You know, it's going to be dependent on obviously what kind of the users are trying to accomplish or what they're trying to do with the tools. And it depends on the workflow, I guess. I mean, if it's something as simple as kind of a blue dot and sharing out an event plan. All of that information could be loaded into offline maps that users could then have available on their phones so that they wouldn't be dependent on connectivity. So within field maps, you could create an offline map with the base map and those services. So you could see the plan, see a blue dot for where you are that would be using, the GPS of the phone, but then wouldn't be reliant on data or be reliant on a connection. So in that use case, you could still get a lot of usage, and that's a great question when you think of an event like a football game where maybe there's 90,000 people, at the stadium. And as we all know, cell service can get a little spotty in those times when the towers are just getting smashed, with connections. So you'd still get a lot of functionality out of just a base map and a kind of a common picture for seeing information, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. We have one for Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, how have you handled concerns from your community or administration about publicly sharing some of this kinds of data you showed? So basically the notion the data can be used by the public for good or bad, right? So the example here is like, for instance, sharing where groups of people will be gathered outside of buildings during emergencies or highlighting pathways with poor lighting. Have you had any concerns or questions, or do you guys have anything in place to try to handle where people, I guess, could use the information for bad? Is that something you come across?
I haven't came across anything like that. I know before I started that emergency assembly area, well, that map has always been on the Campus Map website. For the other maps that I've shared, I did reach out to the emergency management team and fire safety just to make sure that I could share them publicly. But nothing really has been discussed regarding that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a great question because obviously you can see both sides of it, right? I mean, there's certainly information that needs to be there and available to the public for their own safety. But then on the other hand, it's a good point that I think we all in this day and age have to remember that all the information we put out there, right, can be used for purposes other than we intended. And so that's a great question. I mean, I guess it's good to hear that it hasn't come up because that means there hasn't been any concerns, at least at this point, right? So, all right, and let me see. We got, I think that might be all the questions we have for this one.
One question answered earlier, just, there was a question about will the recording be available, and it'll be available later, at the website where you go and registered, all the recordings will be there. And then we have a link that was dropped into an answer up there now that'll have all the recordings available on it.
I have a question for Elizabeth.
Take it away.
Go for it.
You had mentioned a night map and you had some lighting representations on there. And I'm wondering how you gathered that lighting information. I feel like there's like three ways. One of them is like, what is the bulb in there and what kind of light does it emit? You can actually take a lumen gauge out there and gather lumens, or maybe do a nighttime flyover possibly. So those are just brainstorming what I imagined. So I was just wondering how that data came about.
Yeah, so for the ones that are like the latest, I know there's been a lot of construction recently. So all the new lighting I've gathered through aerial imagery. So I just whatever the latest captured imagery is, I've been plotting those on the map from the aerials. But prior to me being here, all of those lights, that light information was gathered. I'm not 100% sure if it was all georeferenced through aerials or, yeah, I'm not really sure if it was. I know the data was from facility services, but I'm not sure if it was an AutoCAD file or.
Sure, and I guess because it's more, every bulb may emit maybe a different spectrum or a different.
Some of the LEDs kind of a really stark halo.
Right, exactly. And so I just wonder, was it you just kind of placed a standard emission of light on each pole? or did you actually measure the lumens that were coming?
Oh, you mean for like the ones on the map itself? Like the light that you see? It's just,
Yeah.
no, it's just a symbology layer on it, but it's not, yeah, it's not reflected on what kind of light bulb.
Right, because
I know
one of the things, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the older ones, I know that there is data on what type of light it is, but I didn't do it on the symbology. So for that map specifically, it just shows all of them the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. I guess in the respect, like, and we do the same thing when you have people walk and they do a couple safety walks at night on campus. And so even in some cases where there may be a light pole with light being emitted, it may not be emitting light that people feel safe, right? And that there is a perception or subjectivity to that. And what we would love to be able to do is provide a little bit more objectivity that says, okay, well, this
That'd be
light
interesting.
certainly emits more.
I'm picturing a path of that, Diana. Sorry, I'm just thinking of, capturing those sentiments and what's the correlation with halogen or LEDs. I mean, I'm sure there's folks that have done that. But that would be a really cool way to capture some
absolutely.
data.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of requests too, Diana, just for Elizabeth's map, basically saying, I just want to know if the light is working or not. Like, it's just like,
right.
do we
Which
have,
is another thing, right? Applying a maintenance factor that you can just, this light doesn't work. It sends a work order request to FM, right?
Absolutely. So Elizabeth could use her map there too to say, like, there's a group of lights out in this area where now there's, a big dark section of a walkway or something of that nature. And that seems to be something that we're hearing more and more about. So another good use case, for the map.
Yeah, I was just talking to a student who's doing a crime statistics project, and one of my brainstorms was, hey, maybe we correlate the time that crimes occur with, and maybe they all happen at night or they happen in these areas where it may be less lit.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are at the top of the hour. Well done on timing, everyone. that was great. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks to all the presenters. You guys are great. We love having you. Looking forward to another one of these webinar series starting in the spring of next year. So you'll all see more information coming out about that. And for everyone on the line, if you have questions, if you'd like to talk directly to any of the folks on this panel, please reach out to me and let me know. I'll certainly reach out to them and see if that's okay. But again, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it. And yeah, for the webinars, we'll see you in the spring next year.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.